Welcome back, everyone. This is another video of Small Business Treasury. Today, I have a very interesting topic I want to discuss. I just had a meeting with a client of mine. He's local, and I wanted to help him out as a good friend of mine. And I want to talk about something that is overlooked on many small businesses and growing businesses, and that's the topic of bank treasury fees. So, to give a high level of what bank treasury fees are or bank treasury services, whenever you go to your bank and you open your business account and then the banker starts seeing that you have a lot of revenue coming in or you have growing revenue coming in, many times they will want to upsell their services to you because many of these treasury management officers or small business bankers, they get paid on commission based on how many products and services they sell to local clients or to their clients or any of those clients that bank with whatever bank they're doing with, whether it's a local bank, regional bank, or international banks such as JP Morgan, all the way down to your credit union. So every single bank has pretty much similar basic treasury services available. You have your basic fraud, positive pay, lockbox, remote deposit, online access, check imaging, all of these basic treasury services that are available to small businesses. And what ends up happening is that these bankers or these sales associates, this is essentially what they are looking to get a commission off of small businesses. And when they look at your accounts and they look at your business accounts and they see the type of revenue that's coming in and the type of volume that's being processed, they will try to sell one of their products and services. But many times, those products and services may not be applicable to you, and they're just looking to make a sell. So it's very, very important that when you do get approached by these bankers and these sales associates at the banks, that you are asking specifically why these products and services are related and are necessary for your business, right? So I'll give you an example. Let's say a banker or an associate tries to sell you lockbox services, but your business doesn't process many checks. So on a treasury services fee, they may just be looking to make a sell and they're trying to get a commission off of this service to you. And on your line items for your treasury services, it may not appear like a big amount. It may be very minimal. But if you're not processing any checks, you're being billed every single month for this service that you may or may not need for your business. And that's just one example of how these treasury services are sold by business bankers and sales associates of these local and regional banks. And it's very important that you, as a founder, CEO, or C-level executive, or the CFO for the small business or the growing business that you're a part of, that you're always asking, does this treasury service relate to my business and is it necessary for me to operate in a more efficient, in a more optimal way? So that's one of the things that I was looking at as my friend's company. We were reviewing the bank statements, and it turns out that he was being billed for a lot of treasury services that he doesn't need. So I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's very important that you as a business owner are aware whenever someone tries to sell you something, you have to ask yourself, you have to ask the team, you have to ask the banking team how this is applicable to your business. And the reason why is because many of these bankers, they look at everybody who's a client of theirs as just a number. They're looking to make a little bit of commission from whatever service they're trying to sell, and they don't necessarily understand your business the way that you need it to be understood, right? They're not part of your daily ongoing operations team. They're not your CPA, they're not your lawyer, they're not going to go into the nitty details of the daily operations of your business. They just see transaction volume. Oh, I could probably make a sell on this type of line item and make a commission off of it. So you as the business owner, you have to be responsible to educate yourself and be aware of whenever these treasury services are being presented and they're being attempted to be sold to you in any way. Ask them how this is applicable and how it will benefit your business, because the whole point of adding treasury services to your bank accounts is to make sure that you are optimizing, or you're being more efficient, or you're saving in transactions, or you are somehow improving your business overall. If they're just trying to make a sell and they're trying to sell you a service that you may or may not need, and they try to present it in a way that you may, I don't know, may need it in the future. It's very important that you push back and say, please explain to me how this may benefit my business, right? So another thing that I used to do when I was in Treasury consulting a few years ago, I was a senior analyst for a company that actually did reviews for the biggest companies in the United States, for Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. We did bank reviews on their treasury services. So we would talk about how much they were getting billed by their bank for their treasury related services. So I was a senior analyst there. I used to work with an amazing team, and we would look at these bank statements, and the bank statement is very different from their treasury statements, right? So treasury service statements, those are going to be the line by line items on how much you're paying for each transact for each line item in your treasury services um, banking portfolio, right? So, or banking platform, because and the bank statement is going to show up as one line item as for X amount for treasury related services, but there's not a breakdown of what those services include. That's in a separate statement. You have to request that. Some banks have them hidden within the banking portal, but it's not accessible easily. You have to look around, and sometimes you have to request it from your banker. And you have to think about these as like little hidden fees, right? That many times that you look into your bank's your phone bill, and you see this line item for $15, and you don't know what that $15 entices. It's very similar to treasury services when it comes to your banking needs, right? In the bank statement, you'll see Bank of America treasury related services fees, $125. Or maybe it's JP Morgan, you have $200 in bank treasury banking transaction fees or services fees, and you as a business owner, you see like, oh, I'll just pay, it's a small amount for the overall volume that you're producing in your business. But the thing is, it's very important to get into the habit of understanding what you're paying for, because many times half of those services fees don't even are not even necessary for your business. And the thing is, it may not be a big deal right now, but as you grow and you have more volume and you have more revenue coming in, these fees usually go in parallel with those revenues and volumes. A lot of treasury service fees come from volume. And I'll give you an example. Wire fees. Sometimes if you produce up to a certain amount, it's $15. Sometimes it's $25. Sometimes it's $50. It just depends on how many services or how many transactions and volume you are using in wires per month. But that's applicable to everything. It could be check deposits, it could be ACH, it could be positive pay. Everything in banking treasury fees is based on volume. So although you may not think, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm just going to pay the treasury fees. As your business grows and your volume grows, those fees are going to grow in parallel. So if you're not aware from the very beginning what you are paying for, you'll end up paying a lot more in the future, and then it's very difficult to correct it once the fees are already in place, once your volume has increased, because they're going to push back and say, oh no, well, your business is producing X amount of money, it's part of our treasury fees, they should have been negotiated from the very beginning. uh we have a lock-in rate, and it's usually for X amount of dates. It's important that every time that you add a treasury fee, you're understanding what is it for, how much is it for, does it change in volume, what happens if your volume and deposits double or triple in the next 3 months, how does that affect your treasury fees. A lot of these banks, they're very sneaky with these fees, so you have to be very, very careful as to what you're paying for. And you just have to understand, as the business owner, the C suite, the CEO, the founder, you have to understand, you have to be aware, right? So then you can delegate that responsibility to your CFO or your head of accounting, your head of finance, and then they can go in and start looking into the specific details as to understand what is going on, right? Because you as a CEO and the founder, you shouldn't be wasting your time on looking as to how much you're paying for wire fees per volume, or ACH or positive pay per volume. You have more important things to do. You have to grow your business. But you have to be able to give direction and guidance to your CFO or to your head of accounting and tell them, hey, we are paying $500 in treasury fees each month. I want to understand the breakdown of what these fees are made out of and what the volume based per fees are. Because if we start growing, as I anticipate in the next year or two, we're going to triple our volume, triple our deposits. I don't want to be hit with the $1,500 treasury fee from Bank of America. So I need you to look into it and help me understand. Go talk to the bankers. Go talk to our to the branch or whatever the case may be and ask them, hey, I want to see a breakdown of my treasury fees. I want to see why this equals is and what is the total sum, right? Because it's usually going to make up about, if you're a small business, between 5 to 15 treasury services, right? The most common ones are going to be wires, your remote deposit, your check imaging, your positive pay, your ACH, your stop payments, right? Many people don't know, from a retail side, a stop payment is like $25 per stop payment. So that increases substantially in the commercial side. So, and stop payments, another thing about this, they auto renew. So even if you find the payment on, or you find the check that you put a stop pay on and then you void it and then you shred it, they auto renew every 6 months to a year. So you're now paying stop payments for every check that you put a stop payment on indefinitely until you tell the banker that you want to remove that stop pay. Those are things that you as the founder need to be able to delegate to your CFO and say, hey, help me understand what these fees we're paying, because you want to avoid big fees in the future, right? So very, very important. I would say that when you start making about $1 million in revenue per year, you want to start looking into understanding the full details of treasury, right? You want to understand the small little things that you may not think is important, but they compound and they add up substantially over the long period, right? In this channel, I like to talk about protecting the capital that you've worked very hard to obtain. Making money in business is not easy. You want to protect that capital in every way. You want to protect it from wire fraud, ACH fraud. You want to protect it from check fraud. You want to protect it from internal staff. You want to protect it from even the bankers themselves, because the banker does not have your best interest at heart. They don't understand your business the way you do, your accountants, your CPA does. So they're going to try to sell you services that you may not think twice about it, and then they're going to collect on the volume. So you want to be able to at least understand it. A CEO has to understand everything that's going on in their business, and then be able to delegate that out to their head of accounting, head of finance, so that they're not dealing with issues in the future. Everything about what we talk about here in Treasury is preventative. Prevent wire fraud, prevent HCA fraud, prevent check fraud, right? Prevent being abused and used by the bankers. Prevent your capital from being lost. You want to prevent things, all right? Even if you don't understand the full details, it's important to just understand the basics. Understand the basics, and then give your CEO, your CFO, the guidance and direction, and let them investigate into the full detail, and then they report to you and say what they found, right? Delegate to the CFO, say, hey, look into treasury fees. I want to understand what we're paying for and why we're paying it, and how does it benefit our business, and if there's anything that we are going to be able to reduce based on increase in volume over the next few years. And I want to see a report, and you as a CEO can delegate that to the CFO, and then they'll be able to come back to you with a report and say, hey, look, we can knock out this item, we don't need it. We can knock out this item, we don't need it. Oh, we're transitioning to full ACH. We're not going to need checks in the future. Why do we need to have check imaging? We're being charged $20 per check per year to save images that we're no longer going to need. So that might be something you can reduce. Those are things that your CFO should be able to do, your head of accounting, because as we mentioned, in treasury, it's a small niche department within an organization. Many small and growing businesses are not going to have a treasury department. They're not going to have a dedicated team that is responsible for treasury related activities. That usually falls under the head of accounting, head of finance, head of under the CFO, right? That kind of gets lumped into one. As your business grow into several tens of millions, hundreds of millions, then you start to develop your own treasury team, right? I work for an organization. We generate about $1 billion in revenue. We have our own treasury team, right? I lead that treasury team. I act as a middle management treasury. I have an analyst that reports to me, and I report to the VP, right? But I oversee all these transactions, and my goal with this channel is to help implement enterprise level treasury services and strategies and procedures to small and growing businesses, because it's very difficult to implement it after you have grown. It's very difficult to implement it after you have too much activities going on, right? I'll give you a very good example. It's a lot easier to prevent wire fraud and be proactive and spend the 30 minutes to implement the proper treasury protocols and procedures and policies to prevent wire fraud than to be reactive and do it after it happens, right? I work for a $1 billion organization. We can afford to take a hit on a $25,000 wire fraud, which, by the way, I have seen happen, and we have some of the best policies in place. So if it happens at $1 billion organizations, it's very likely to happen at smaller level organizations. And it's worth the time as the founder, CEO, the C suite. If you're a CFO watching this, it's very, very important that you either are implementing these yourself as a CFO, or you're bringing it to the attention to your CEO, or you as a founder, you're delegating this to a CFO to become aware. It's a lot easier to just take the time, take 2 hours, 3 hours to learn how to prevent it, how to protect your capital, and then to take a hit one day. You wake up, you were a victim of wire fraud or ACH fraud or check fraud, and now you're down 25,000. You as a business owner are fully aware how difficult it is to earn $25,000 when you're producing a product or service. So Treasury is not attractive, it's not sexy, it's not something that people talk about, but it's very important in your daily operations and cash management. It is, when you think of cash management, it is Treasury. Treasury is cash management. It's just, Treasury is just the corporate terminology, but in reality, all it means is, how do I manage my cash and how do I protect my cash? How do I make sure that I have enough liquidity in my bank account to cover my bills? And how do I make sure that if I'm short on something, how do I navigate that? How do I obtain liquidity through elsewhere, either through LLC, a line of credit, or through expediting your accounts receivable, working with your AR department to make sure you're collecting revenue from your clients, right? That's what Treasury is. Treasury is not the big thing that people talk about. It's none of those things, but it's probably one of the most important, if not the only thing that prevents your cash from making sure that your bank account doesn't get overdrawn, that you have enough cash in the bank to cover all your upcoming expenses. That's what Treasury is. Treasury is cash management. If you look into LinkedIn and you type in Treasury, 99% of the time is going to say Treasury, cash management, Treasury, cash manager, something related to cash, because that's what it is. It's cash, it's daily cash, right? Accounting is looking into what happened, finance is looking into what will happen, Treasury, cash is looking into what is happening, right? So that has a small niche and very small people, very few people talk about it, but it's very, very important. And you as a CEO need to be understand the basics so you can delegate that to your CFO, so they can report back to you what they've discovered, what the research was, how it can save your growing business and your small organization. Because in business, you have to be prepared for growth, right? You don't want to be reactive. You have to be proactive. You don't want to look into 3 months from now, and because you decided not to look into Treasury, you decide, oh, it hasn't happened yet, then you're down $25,000 because of wire fraud, right? Or you discover later on, 3 years, that you're paying $1,500 in Treasury fees because you didn't decide to delegate the task to your CFO to report back to you and say, hey, look into this, help me understand what we're paying for in the Treasury fees, so we're not hit with a surprise in the future, right? Treasury, very important. My goal in this channel is to just educate. I want to help people. I work in corporate treasury. I've been in it for over 10 years. I have over a decade experience. I work for several different type of positions, from analyst all the way to middle management, where I'm at now, climbing up through the ranks to high level director roles. I come from a family of small business, and I've seen the devastation of it whenever they were a victim to check fraud, or they were a victim to wire fraud, or they were a victim to other types of fraud, or they weren't aware of what treasury fees they were paying for. I see it all the time. And I see it in the corporate world. I see how they are targeted by, very sophisticated hackers and individuals of that nature. And it's my job to prevent fraud from happening in my organization, because I am in middle management. I take responsibility for anything that happens. So I am aware of what happens in the $1 billion organization. So I can definitely tell you what can happen in a smaller business, in a smaller organization, right? Just because you're smaller does not mean you're a target, right? You have to keep that in mind. So be proactive, do not react, prevent things from happening. It's a lot cheaper to take things into being, react being proactive and before they happen, so you don't have to deal with it in the future, and then discover that you were a victim to any type of fraud, or discover that you were overpaying for treasury services that you don't need, right? So I'll be posting more about this. I'm making a series of videos. I There's a lot of things that happen on my day-to-day activities, my daily job, that I can share with in broad detail, not full the details of what happens, but in general, right? So situations where we have vendor fraud or wire fraud or hack situations, and how treasury is involved in all of those things. So I'll be sharing a lot of those things in this channel. Just even if you never take action from it on a consulting side, just take action from a learning side, right? Just consume the information and delegate out. That's the most important part from a C-suite level or founder or CEO, because that is what's going to protect your business as it grows and as you continue to generate more revenue, and get more clients and produce more goods and services to the economy, protect the cash that you worked hard to obtain. That's all for today. See you on the next one.